You had mentioned that Niemoller was a supporter of some kind of Nazi regime initially. How did he evolve from a supporter of Nazism and perhaps of Hitler into an opponent?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So when Hitler came to power in January 1933, Niemoller was ecstatic. This is what he had hoped for. He believed that the Nazis would return Germany to a great country again. He thought that during the Weimar Republic, Germany had appeared weak and indecisive. And although the monarchy wasn't coming back, Hitler and the Nazis still represented a sort of conservative nationalist outlook that he liked. So in an election that took place, the last free election in Nazi Germany in March 1933, he voted for the Nazis, indicating to everybody that this is where he stood. So how then does he become, the pastor who defied the Nazis? How does he become an opponent of the Nazis? Well, fairly quickly, he began to observe a tendency among the party members and Hitler that was anti-church, he believed. Hitler and the Nazis supported a particular faction within the German Protestant church. This faction is confusingly called the German Christians. The German Christian movement was first and foremost Nazi and only secondarily Protestant, but they were a growing number of Protestants within the German Protestant church. And Niemoller opposed them for various reasons. First of all, they were sort of upstart opportunists who were taking advantage of Hitler coming to power to try to take over the church. But he also opposed them on some theological grounds. The German Christians, for example, wanted to bar from the church all pastors who had any Jewish ancestry. Now, there weren't too many of those, but the problem with barring pastors of Jewish ancestries, in other words, Christians of Jewish descent, was that they were baptized Christians. And so if you were to ban them, you would be undermining one of the sacred tenets of Christianity, one of the sacraments of baptism. So he opposed it for that reason. The German Christians wanted, for example, to worship an Aryan Jesus, literally. They wanted to ban the Old Testament. They wanted to remove all Jewish influences from the church. And even though Niemoller was not ecstatic about all the Jewish influences in the church, he nevertheless defended them, defended the Old Testament. He defended the Jewish Jesus, and he opposed any attempt to impose a racial litmus test on access to the church. So the Nazis supported this group called the German Christians. Hitler in particular even went on the radio during church elections in July of 1933, encouraging people to support this faction within the church. And he was successful. During the July 1933 elections, a lot of German Christians were elected and took over many of the leadership bodies and the leadership positions of the church. This meant that the former more established, more traditional, more conservative leadership of the church was shunted aside as the German Christians took over. And at least in certain places, the German Christians imposed this racial criteria for access to the church or membership in the church. And so this violated some of the most basic ideas of Christianity. And so Niemoller's opposition to the Nazis was primarily geared towards Nazi church policy, was opposed to the Nazis' church policy, while he remained somewhat supportive of other aspects of Nazism. He didn't oppose Nazi foreign policy or other aspects of Nazi domestic policy, and he didn't voice criticisms of Nazi racial policy towards Jews, only towards Christians of Jewish descent.